got that.
Live now. Hey everybody, hey Facebook. Apologies that we had some technical difficulties there. This is Mangala. It's lovely to be here with you all, and I'm delighted today to be here with the amazing Dinsmore-Tuli.
Thank you so much for inviting me. It's lovely to be here. Hello, Mangala, and all
Hi.
Mangala's lovely people.
And I'm just going to keep an eye on the feed here on my phone so that we can see questions. We won't
All
see
right,
them
yeah,
here
I'm
on
really
Zoom.
happy to answer questions because
Yeah.
I've been a bit silenced for a couple of
Yes.
years, Mangala. So that
Yeah.
was unusual.
Yeah.
Usually at a loss for words.
Yeah. So here we are, and I will do an introduction again. So Uma is just an incredible force of nature. She is a yoga therapist. She's written 4 books. She's the co-founder of Yoga Nidra Network. She's the author of the amazing Yoni Shakti, and we're going to talk about that today. And we're going to have a conversation about what happens when the shit hits the fan and you're up against some thick swinging bullies and you've got menopausal fire. So,
In the middle of your menopause.
yeah. So where do we want to start with this? Do you want to kind of just say hello and
Well,
we'll get into it?
I want people to know that one of the things that like keeps the menopausal crew running are other menopausal women. Because in the midst of this, I had a number of conversations with you, Mangala, which I was very grateful because you know something about some of the people who were objecting, and it's kind of helpful, I think, to clarify. A lot of people know this book, the one that I wrote in, I don't know if you can see it, in 2014. But that's the first edition, and the second edition, you see it's got a different color. This edition, that came out in 2020, and that's the one that caused the trouble. So it's basically the same book, but with an extra bit at the front. And that's how you know. If you happen to get hold of the second edition, you're very lucky because it's been out of print for nearly 2 years, whilst some of the people who were mentioned in the book objected to the fact that anyway, they objected to what I'd said and took me to court. So, and as you know, it was a very long procedure. If any of you have ever had legal dealings, it's not quick and it's complicated.
Yeah.
And in the midst of it, you're going through menopause and you're kind of, I don't know, I engaged with a great deal of rage and regret. and I was grateful for the support that I had around me quietly from people like yourself, Mangala, like realizing and recognizing that it's important to to keep each other's spirits up when things look really terrible. And when you can't really speak, I wasn't able to speak about it because it had to go to court 3 times.
Gosh. Wow. Are you able, I don't know what you're able to say about that, or where you're at, because it's with the whole sciencing thing, but
I am able to say rather happily that that we did win the case in the end. So that means that the book is going to be reprinted in June, which is next month, which is very soon. So that I'm able to tell you that, and I'm also able to tell you that we have to reprint it exactly as it was when I put out this second edition. So I'm not allowed to change a comma. It has to go exactly the same. It's the same book. It's just a reprint. It's not a new book anymore. It's actually a reprint. So that there's a lot of technical stuff about it. But what's important to know really is is that I think part of the energy of menopause is to speak your truth, isn't it?
Yes.
And when you're prevented from doing that, really, I mean, the idea, you have to sort of keep quiet when things are in legal process. And even if they don't feel very fair and you want to shout about it. So it's about managing the rage and the anger, righteous anger, and then realizing that I couldn't do that. I couldn't actually speak out about it. So that was quite frustrating. So I think it's interesting, like the menopausal energy and how it manifests, because so much about what we go through is about reviewing all the things we've done. And I was like, so what was the point of all this then? Speaking up for the truth, speaking out against abuse against women in yoga, which is rife. especially young women, and especially kind of rather worryingly enabled by older women, which is very, very distressing.
Mm-hmm.
And knowing that when we speak out about these things, the machineries that enable that kind of behavior also operate in our legal systems and in every aspect of the kind of institutional and structural framework of our society is kind of designed to discourage you from speaking out, punish you if you do speak out. And so really the only network of support that truly was there was like this network you're on, and maybe the people watching as well. You feel like people would say, God, I heard what you're going through. And it turned out that there are others, you know, we're trying to support each other, people who've been doing this work for years,
Right. Yeah.
like Josna Pankania and the people in the Shivananda, who's been calling out stuff about Satyananda Yoga, and the people in the Shivananda organization. I mean, and none of this may be big news, but it's going on all the time. And I think in menopause we get a kind of, I don't know, an additional call to see what is not okay
Yeah.
in
Yeah.
one's own
Absolutely.
life,
Yeah.
what's no longer tolerable in one's own lives, and then to see that those things that are intolerable in the structures, like in the yoga schools, in the institutions, that actually everything's set up against anybody calling that out, and
Yeah.
that's worrying, eh?
Yeah. Yeah. And it's a time of life where that, what often comes right to the fore is this, like, hang on, this is not okay. Whether it's personal stuff, whether it's society, whether it's the structures we live in, it's conditioning, is all of it. And that brings up, I see it in myself and a lot of my friends and my clients, it's like this sacred rage. And it's a powerful force. But how the hell do you deal with that when you're silenced and you can't, like, you've got to kind of hold that. No, I
And
can't imagine how that's
yeah, and
been.
it's not just me. I think that often people who are caught in those, I've always been on the outside of those structures, like calling in help, but like calling out what's not okay. And because of that, I mean, I'm kind of, you get connected with all the other people who are in that position, who are on the outsides of it. But like, people are stuck within it. If you're in a job, I don't know, and you're working, you're working for banks and police forces and schools and universities, and if you call it out, you lose your job.
Yeah. Yeah.
I mean, I didn't have a job to lose, you know what I mean? Like,
Mm-hmm.
it really made me glad for the menopausal fierceness, because it was part, it's like always been there. I've been calling out, I've been shouting about injustice since I could speak,
Mm-hmm.
that was like, but actually I think it builds up, and so I really think that if there's a message I can kind of communicate about it, it's that even if it looks as if everything is like on the outside, the official line is against you, like shut up, be quiet, just get on with it. In fact, when you do speak, then these other voices, like my phone was full of little private messages from people who go, I know those people, they messed up my girlfriend. I know those people, they did that to me. I know those people. And they all called in. So I had a sense that somehow the fact that I didn't back down, because I nearly did at one point, I was like, it was financially ruinous. Like, and
And that's what that's what they rely on, isn't it?
they want for you to back down. And at
Yeah.
one point I turned to the legal team and I said, I can't do this anymore. It's been 2 years. I cannot do it anymore. My home is at risk. Everything I've worked for is gone. I haven't got any money, For people were contributing to the legal costs, but it wasn't even enough. It was extraordinary. And I was like, what happens if we back down now? They said, don't do that, Uma. Back out at a certain point in a legal case, whatever it is, you then have to pay the costs for the other side, even if
Yeah.
they're wrong. Even if
Jesus.
you're speaking out because they're wrong, and they said, so don't back out, we have to keep going. And I said, so what happens now? So I had to beg, borrow, and money off people to keep paying the fees. And in the end, when the judge made the judgment, you know, they were, it was all on a technicality. We didn't even get to discuss the book itself, the technicality of what it was that it's a long, I won't bore you with it. But what's important is that I did not back down. And as a result of that, I know that it encouraged other people who were like sitting on the fence thinking, well, you know, maybe I should also bring a court case against these people. Maybe I should speak about it. And they weren't. And then when they heard that I'd actually backed down, I hadn't backed down, I'd stayed firm and won, I think that gave other people encouragement. So it's like we can encourage each other. But
Yeah.
it's ever so hard being the
Yeah.
one that's called it out, because it's terrifying if you've got the machinery of an enormous organization
Yeah.
ranked against you with lots of power and lots of money and lots of capacity to manipulate people's opinions, and you're speaking out against them. I've been in that position a lot. It makes you sick.
Yeah. Yeah.
It makes you very poor. And but it's somehow in me, I was like, I don't think I can back down. Well, I couldn't, because I would have had to pay their costs. So maybe that's a good message, is that in hearing another woman's voice like that speaking out, you know, I talked to you about, and you were like, no, you know, they really are, they're not good people. And those of us who know, we sort of have an obligation to speak out. And so that's what I've done. So the book will be available and you can all read it.
And you know, this really speaks to me, to like the whole reason that abuse gets perpetuated is because of silence, because people who experience abuse are put in a position where to speak out, that means that they risk everything. They risk losing everything, that they're not going to be believed, they're going to be, their reputation is going to be dragged through the mud. This is why the amount of rapes that actually get reported to the police is so low. It's why it perpetuates in every system, as you say, in every organization. It perpetuates in families. We see it everywhere. This isn't like some like niche yoga, you know, a hippie thing. This is in every aspect of society all around the world. It is huge. And to actually voice it and to go public with it is like, I mean, it's huge. And I know when I went public with mine, and when I went to the authorities, you know, I did that as much for my own healing as for just that sense of it's not right. And I think, had I not been the age I was, like being in my 40s, perhaps I would have just brushed it under the carpet and got on with it. I mean, I don't know.
And it was because I knew what you'd done. I was able to speak with you about it, and you were like, no, Uma, this is the right thing to do. And it's like you were fueled, weren't you, in your 40s by this sense of change, of thing, and you're like, this is it, this is for real. You know, I haven't got another 40 years to hang around and sort this out. We need to make sure that I do what's right, as you say, for your own healing, and even to speak out on behalf of others who could not speak out. I mean, what I voiced, some of the experiences I shared, they had to be anonymous because the people were frightened of the retributions. They were terrified. And if you're deep into some sort of cult, or, you know, well, a lot of those organizations are cults, it's your everything. It's your family, it's your colleagues, you're working together, you're doing this marvelous stuff, and it's all for the good of humanity and uplifting. And so if you
spiritual beliefs and everything,
goes very deep.
Yeah.
So if you do call that out and start to critique it, and you're cut off from everything. It's like being not just excommunicated, but like completely exiled from your family. And to be honest, I think facing that is much easier in menopause, because you're like, well, what is all that anyway? You know, and when the estrogen levels, I love the idea that estrogen is the hormone of accommodation. It helps us accommodate. You know, oh, what can I do for you? I'll just keep the peace. I'll keep it nice. I'll keep turning out the suppers and like being. But actually, when those levels change, something in me, and I think in every menopausal woman, because I'm now like fully postmenopausal, like I haven't bled now, you know, I've been tracking all this through the middle of the court case. Like it happened in the middle, and I was like, it was almost like a sort of superpower to keep going, because actually I think if I had been younger, I would have been like, I just can't be doing with this. I would have just shut up and put up. But actually, I think if we see that rage as a bit of a superpower, and it's the energy of like speaking the truth in itself is a goodness, but and even the difficulties it brings you up against, the challenges and the exile and the excommunication and in my case the silencing, like we couldn't print the book, and we, all we could have done, but it would have caused loads more trouble. It was like, that was really hard to bear, because I was like, if only everybody knew what was going on. They don't, but actually we kept it quiet, and I felt that the other menopausal women in my life who understood about this rage, but it does come, energy levels are also changed, aren't they? We're kind of like trying to change priorities so that we're not doing everything for everybody all the time.
Yeah, and it's hard to get.
I don't have the same energy I had when I was in my 20s or 30s.
Totally, and I'm sure lots of well-meaning people will say, "Oh, just get more rest," and that's not exactly easy when you're in the middle of a court case, is it?
And I can tell you, the lifesaver for me is obviously my job is sharing nidra.
Yeah.
And so even in the midst of it, except obviously some of it, I was caught up in a family crisis, and I was in Canada, so I was on Pacific time attending court online in the UK.
Oh, wow.
So I had to get up at 2 a.m. and be there, and I had this extraordinary experience. So I had to know that I could go back to sleep. So I can't stress enough that I think the only way I got through it was the network of support that I had, and the fact that I practice yoga nidra every day, at least once, sometimes 3 times a day, and then my work is sharing nidra, so I know how to go back to sleep. And people who wake up in the middle of the night with menopause, it's one of the classic things, but I knew I could go back to sleep even if I'd been in court between 2 and 4 in the morning. I could then rest again, because that's my top skill, is actually sleep and rest. And obviously, fortunately, and in the middle of it, we were writing Yoga Nidra Made Easy, another plug. But that book came out last year, so obviously, and I was having to test drive all the nidras. There were all these audios that I was doing, so I was constantly sharing Yoga Nidra, practicing Yoga Nidra. And I swear that Nidra Shakti, the power of sleep and rest, is the only reason I'm still alive. I think I would have gone up in smoke, as a lot of menopausal people do, if it wasn't for that. So that's another message, is like, it's so vital. It's like it's inbuilt in my daily structure that I do that in the mornings, I do it in the evenings, I do it in the afternoons, because I couldn't keep going otherwise.
That is such it's an amazing advert for Yoga Nidra, and it's testament to what happens when you build that capacity through practice regularly.
Because it means, even because everything's a bit rocky, isn't it? Menopause is like not plain sailing.
No.
It swings and the exhaustion and all that. But I found that, because if you do cultivate it, and people think it's not possible, but it's a skill, it's a learned skill. You can cultivate the capacity to switch off and rest in the midst. And you'll be amused to know that even on the most terrifying moment, when I was like, this is it, that he's going to fine for the other people, and it kept on being postponed and adjourned, that's the term, isn't it, and coming back, and I was like, they can't. And in the midst of it, I was so terrified, but I was also so bored, because it's an incredibly tedious process. I actually fell asleep, like in the middle of it. I was like, oh, and I woke up and I was like, oh no, it's still going on. It was like Bailey. So yes, so those are like, the fierceness kept me going, but like if you're sustaining that level of energy, of like fierceness, and you actually need nourishment. And the nourishment of rest is actually nutritious. It was nourishing me, so I could keep relatively sane. Sleep, even though I was managing all these different time zones and all these different, and you know what it's like with lawyers, it's all urgent. You have to like read these things, and people were lying. They were telling terrible lies about their organization, their terrible charitable, blah de blah.
Don't get me started on that one. I can only imagine.
Just lying about it. So I think that that's a really important, it's almost like as a balance for the immense power of the rage, and of like, that's not okay, whatever it is. In my case, it was this. In your case, it could be whatever. But to balance that, we need deep rest and solitude, and like the capacity to just, and obviously like pleasure and joy and delight and rest are they're all nutrients, you know. It's
Yeah.
not, and all of that, I mean, I did have those things.
That's such a like so inspiring, and I think I would just say to anybody who's watching this who is like age 35 and above, like start getting like you're not just getting your rest in, but like looking for things like yoga nidra, things that are, you know, can actively give you that restorative energy and capacity within your system. And the beautiful thing is, you know, some of them can be really short, like 10 minutes. You just lie down, be guided by somebody else, to stick it on, press play. You don't have to do anything. And it's like, it's amazing what healing and like what it can do. It's just so incredible.
Yeah, and these practices are like, they're resets, you know,
Mm,
because what happens, I think, I mean, I see it with menstrual cycles as well. People get out of sync and out of balance, and understanding the energy that we feel, you know, in the premenstruum, in the years leading up, when people are still bleeding, to realize that that's often a sign that it's calling for rest
yeah.
before you enter the temple of your bleeding, you know. And
Mm-hmm.
recognizing that is so helpful as we go into menopause. But even if you've never had a conscious menstrual period in your life, it's never too late to start cultivating. There are natural cycles that you can dip into, as I demonstrated. Even when I was in court, I'm like, I'm so tired. I just dipped and then came up and was able to engage really clearly. And that's a total lifesaver, to be able to reset your rhythmic cycles, especially when everything is, you know, gone belly up and on
Yeah.
fire, and all those other metaphors. Like the shit,
Yeah.
there was a lot of shit hitting many fans all at once, and it is like that.
Yeah.
It's like, oh yes, yeah, so my family's falling apart now. Now there's this legal challenge, and maybe your business and finances are under stress, and then your health starts to fall around. Then one system goes, and it's like it's dominoes. They all go down, and it all
Mm-hmm.
seems to happen at once. And elderly relatives, and all of these things that go on at menopause.
Mm-hmm.
But knowing you have a support network of other people who know what it is that you're facing, and
Yeah.
knowing that you have the support of whatever practice you do that gives you a chance to reset those rhythmic cycles every day, you get this amazing deep healing. Sleep
Yeah.
is powerful medicine.
Absolutely.
Such powerful
Absolutely.
medicine. It's the most powerful medicine there is. Like everything
Mm-hmm.
feels better after a nap, doesn't it?
Yeah, absolutely. And, you know, I know like here where I live, we've got six of us, six friends who are all around the same age, and we meet once a month for a merry menopause evening where we get together at somebody's house and we have soup and we just share where we're at. And it's just like having a space like that to come together and have that support and that sisterhood has just been absolutely invaluable. It really has. And so,
People you don't have to explain anything to.
yeah, yeah, they just
I
get
feel,
it.
yeah, and I also feel really grateful for people, well, my own age, but the people who've gone ahead.
Yeah.
I'm fortunate to have a number of friends in their late 60s and 70s, really
Hmm.
powerful women who, to me, are models for how to live, you know,
Yeah.
and I work with them, you know, I'm fortunate to get, and I live with them, and know, and looking at those women and knowing, and they're like, I know what, you know, people are like, oh, you're going through that.
Hmm.
And then they'll tell their stories of what they've been through, and you see the resilience and what it is that enabled them to thrive was this kind of connection to the earth. I feel, you know, I
Yeah.
was always really connected. I was actually cold water dipping through the whole thing. That was like, it's not everybody's cup of tea, and I do it in a very careful way so I don't get
Hmm.
chilled. You know? And Ayurveda, all of the practices of Ayurveda, and like nourishment. But looking at those women who've been through it,
Mm.
cultivating the friendship of older women, and I mean people in their 60s and 70s who really show you how to live, and they're like, you'll come through this. They were so wise. They're like, I know
Hmm.
it's really bad now. And
Yeah.
it was as bad as
Yeah.
it could get,
Yeah.
but blessings. Yeah. So
Yeah.
yeah, it's, these things are so important, and I think
Oh,
these practices almost as our allies. Like
yeah.
I think of yoga nidra as like a dear friend I can go to and
Hmm.
just like lie down, as you say, listen in just and take heart that the truth will out. I am
Yes.
hoping that more and more people will start to notice, and that we can really
Yeah.
continue
Yeah.
celebrate those people who've done this work for a long time. I'm specifically thinking about Josna again, a
Hmm.
friend who's in her 60s who's been calling this out for a long time.
Hmm. So what happens next? Like the book's coming back out.
Yeah, well, what happens next in this little part of my life is that we get Yoni Shakti back out, let everybody know that. And I continue now to sort of debate these issues within things that I run, like I run a Yoni
Hmm.
Shakti book club and I run training courses and all of those things. That's all. It's really strengthened my vision that any practice we do that's about spirituality or the care of the self is about the care of the collective, like the
Hmm.
intersection of healing arts and social justice has become even more clear to me now,
Yeah.
because I was punished as an activist,
Yeah.
and it was the healing arts that enabled me to continue and not burn out as many people do. So because of that intersection between the healing arts and intuition, it was like something in my intuition guided. So what I could do now is I carry on same as before, publishing the books, running my training courses, and running circles, and all the work that I do around lunar circles. But I'm also really keen, because I had to go very quiet. We had a very lively Facebook group and a
Hmm.
campaign to eradicate the abuse of women in yoga, but I had to everything had to go almost silent there. So it would be really good. I'm bringing back interviews there with other people who've done this work. Like there's Jacqueline Hargreaves, who's working at SOAS to promote a really brilliant course explaining about abuse in spiritual communities. So I'm going to share her work, share the work of Josna. And like, having been through what I've been through, I feel I'm in a position now to open up our campaign. So if anyone's listening, people are always messaging me saying, oh, I know this is going on here and that's going on, and you want to speak, or you've got work that you want to share. Like there've been a lot of good studies and academic work now at that level of high level research in universities around the country and around the world, and organizations mobilizing for the
Hmm.
survivors, to support survivors, and
Yeah.
to support like social justice initiatives that actually hopefully eradicate this abuse
Yeah.
of women in yoga. So when I've got and I'm also trying to finish a book I've been writing. That was the whole thing. I was trying to finish another book in the middle of it, which is the Encyclopedia of Yoga Nidra, which I've actually been writing for 7 years. So
Oh.
let's hope that now gets finished, because people didn't realize. They go, where's the book, Uma? I'm like, well, I'm caught up in a massive legal battle that I can't speak about, but I have not finished that book. So hopefully that will get off to the printers in the next couple of months. So if you've been waiting for that, that will be why I
Oh,
haven't done it.
amazing.
So there's all that going on, plus managing our own well-being and enjoying a summer, Mangala, thankfully up
Yes.
in the UK, of sharing yoga nidra at lovely gatherings, things like Medicine Festival and Buddha Field, and I'll be out in the fields, as I think you are.
Fantastic.
You're heading off to a festival and to gatherings, because that's one of the
Hmm.
unique joys in the midst of our extraordinarily beleaguered country, that people take joy. So hopefully we'll have a bit of joy in the summer,
Amazing.
our
Amazing.
friends sharing this good work, and hopefully maybe seeing you at some point.
Yes.
Heart of the Rose. I'm also teaching in Heart of the Rose, which is a really lovely women's gathering at the end of the summer.
Fantastic. Cool. So we'll put some links. I'll go into the feed and we'll put links to everything. Thank you for whoever's joined us today. And it's been a really enriching conversation. And I'm just so delighted that you won. Like, I mean, I just can't believe they even bothered to take it to court, but that's, the last gasp of patriarchy. Like,
To be honest, I created a little folder on my desktop called Death Throes of the Patriarchy. And there wasn't just this, there were a number of other things I won't go into, from other people who were all like almost trying to, like, people, they fight dirty when they're on the way down,
yeah,
don't they?
yeah.
So yeah, and meanwhile, the Yoga Nidra Network, which is where to find me, by the way, on the yoganidranetwork.org, was like going from strength to strength, and
Amazing. Amazing.
getting more teachers out there. I'm just delighted to be able to share this with you, Mangala. I want to thank you for the work that you do, because you just like speak a good, clear truth of the possibilities of menopausal energy being channeled in delight and health and well-being. And I'm
Mm.
glad for the support that you gave me, because I know what you've been, who these people are, and you've been
Yeah.
through it, and they're everywhere. It's not just one organisation. So
Exactly. Yeah.
great to see you thriving, and I'm delighted to
Oh,
share here with you.
thank you. Thank you so much.